This is the GoFundMe page that was set up shortly after that fatal crash. It was established by two women who had a modest goal of around $1,400. As you can see, it's now more than $8.5 million. And that number is increasing. And so are questions about how that money will be handled, including from you, our viewers at home and online. So to help answer them, Kenneth Feinberg is a lawyer based in Washington and a leading authority on distributing victim assistance funds. He's administered campaigns after the Boston Marathon bombing, the Pulse nightclub attack, and others. So Kenneth, given your experience, take us through the process. I mean, more than $8 million, $8.5 million has been raised, and a lot of people have asked, what are the next steps?
Well, you need somebody to administer the fund who's independent, widely respected in the community, credibility. And then that individual has to sit down and get input from the community as to how that money should be distributed very quickly. And the money should then be distributed based on a very transparent public protocol that states who's eligible, what the methodology will be for calculating each allocated amount, and quickly get the money out probably within the next 60 to 90 days, making sure that the right people receive the money. You know, we find here after Boston Marathon or the Orlando bombing or the Virginia Tech shootings, sometimes families are split and they don't agree who should get the money. Mr. Feinberg, the victim, I was the husband, I was the father of the victim. His mother walked away 5 years ago and never spoke with him. She shouldn't get a dime. Then you hear from the mother. Is that right? I was abused by the father. He never cared for the deceased. I mean, you got to be a rabbi or a priest, not an administrator.
So how do you get around those kind of issues?
Well, usually the law of Canada will tell you, in the absence of a will or if it's a young child, the law of Canada says who gets the money. And if they're going to fight about it, go to the probate court or the local Canadian estate court and let them work it out. What we want to do is take the money that's available and immediately, with great efficiency, pro bono, without compensation, get money out to eligible claimants.
So this is a question that I received on Twitter, and it was, who decides whether long-term disability, no disability, or death get more or less? How do you divvy that up?
You get an administrator who meets with people, gets their input, and then makes the decision with his or her credibility on the line. Look, we only have $8 million. That's not a lot of money. You may think it is, but if there are, 15 or so deceased and another 30, 40, 50 physically injured, I mean, the way we do it here in the United States is we take the bulk of the funds and pay it pro rata to each family of a deceased victim.
What does pro rata mean?
You mean equally. If there's 15 dead, take 70% of the $8 million, 70%, and divide that 70%, 1/15 for each of the families that lost a youngster, and send them a check. It's not rocket science. Take the remaining money for the physically injured, the handicapped, those in a coma, those with a broken arm, and simply distribute the same amount of money depending on how long each of the victims was in the hospital. Hospitalization is a pretty good barometer of seriousness of injury. In Orlando, the Pulse nightclub, if you were in the hospital for over 30 days with a terrorist attack wound, a bullet wound, over 30 days, you'll get, I don't recall exactly, but you'll get $300,000. If you were in the hospital for 3 weeks, you'll get $200,000. 1 week, $100,000. Overnight, $50,000. Outpatient emergency treatment, $10,000. And it's rough justice, but you don't have time to seek medical records and determine the financial wherewithal of each family and That's not what this is about. Start it up, get the money out as fast as you can, and shut it down so that people can move on as best they can, and try and move on. That's the whole key to these programs: speed, cost effectiveness. No money for the administrator, no money for the lawyers. This is strictly a gift from the community and its sense of support for those who have suffered so. It's a pretty poor substitute, I must say.